Hi, everybody. So my name is Stephanie Jones. I am a science technology teacher in the Lowell Public School District, and this video is all about Dash robots, specifically Dash robot tips for educators. I had the pleasure of getting to work with these robots for a few weeks at the end of the school year, and I'd like to share some things that I learned. All right, so this is Dash. Dash robots are a fantastic tool to explore numerous coding concepts with students grades 2 through 4, and that's specifically which grades I worked with this at the end of this school year was actually all grades 2, 3, and 4. They're easy to turn on and pair with student Chromebooks, and they use block coding similar to other coding resources such as code.org, Scratch, Lego Education, and more. For me, with some of the other activities I've been working on coding wise with my students, I was happy to have the connections between all of my resources with block coding. So if you are also someone who uses some of these other resources, it'll be a great connection, continuation of exploration with block coding. All right. So one of the things that we worked on this round with the Dash robots was puzzle maps and projects. There are pros and cons for both, as there would be with any other resource. So when you are using the Dash robots, you could begin your students with the puzzle map. So some of the benefits are students can work at their own pace to complete the tasks. Directions with supportive images are provided for every single task, and gradual learning of blocks and Dash's abilities. On the other hand, there's some benefits of project exploration. So the code is already written for students, and I'll show you an example. It demonstrates the complexity or simplicity of tasks depending on the goal. And students can edit and change projects or start from scratch and build their own code. I always compare it to a blank piece of paper and then gives them opportunity to create. All right, so a little bit more about the puzzle map. So this kind of gives you an idea. There's 13 altogether. Most of my students made it to the second or third puzzle because there's quite a few tests within each puzzle, which is great. And again, it always starts off more simple and gets complex over time. And so students can work individually or with a partner to work through those tasks, eventually, hopefully completing all 13. My students actually did a combination of both. Originally, I started them all out with their partner, and I did not ask them to, or I didn't want them to work on their own so that they had an opportunity to troubleshoot and problem solve with a partner, talk it out. And then eventually, as they got more experience with the robots, I had them work individually if that was something that they elected to do. I gave them the option when it came to it. So as I said before, the tasks begin simple and increase in complexity. So for example, the very first one is really just even learning where the start button is. And then it goes to building a sequence and rearranging a sequence, then deleting blocks, adding blocks, editing blocks. And so I've already mentioned what it looks like for my older students. So my upper elementary students, third and fourth grade, originally introduced Dash using the puzzle map with a partner, problem solving with that person as long as they had for that day. With second graders, before launching into Dash, we actually spent some time reviewing block coding on code.org, and I gave them the opportunity to work on some of the Hour of Code projects to just be familiar and have some confidence when it came to block coding before launching them into the dashes. I was pleasantly surprised by a lot of their progress and their perseverance and their positivity when it came to actually working with the dashes. They were so excited. They made a ton of progress. And honestly, the second graders performed very similarly to the third and fourth graders, which was pretty cool to see. And I'm excited to build on that during the next school year. And so projects was introduced to second through fourth grade, mostly third and fourth grade, once they've had some time to work with the Dash robots. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't use projects on the when you first start out with the Dash robots. So again, students can work individually or with a partner to create projects in addition to working on the puzzle map. The projects can be a blank workspace, and there's an option for blank project, or you can actually choose a previously created project, which is really great because it gives them a chance to see, well, if I want my Dash robot to actually sing and dance, how would I make that happen? It's a really great exemplar, and then they have the opportunity to edit and make changes to that code and build on that code, which is great. And they can save their projects and come back to them at a later date. And so for my third and fourth grade students, this was something that I gave them the opportunity to explore after we'd spent some time familiarizing ourselves with the Dash robot, working through some of the puzzle tasks. I felt that there was value, in having them work with Dash before moving into the projects. But again, you could easily launch students into the projects and allow them to use that to familiarize themselves with Dash's abilities, with the block coding on Blockly. So really, there's no wrong way to do it. It's really up to you and your students and, what you ultimately want them to get from that day's worth of coding. So some tips for educators that I have after working with, like I said, my second, third, and fourth graders over probably about almost an 8-week period. Always encourage your students to explore editing the blocks when tasks become more complex. I had a lot of students that, initially, if it wasn't right there in front of them, they kind of wanted to give up. But then I would simply ask them, well, now that you dragged and dropped that block, can you change it? Can you make any edits to it? And then ultimately they kind of found, oh, I can make edits to it. I can figure out this sequence by changing and adapting these blocks. And so, like I said, the second through fourth graders, sometimes they will tend to look for answers from the teachers. They think that we know everything about this, but I always remind them I am also learning and I actually don't know all the answers. We're going to have to learn this together. And sometimes I might be able to help, but there's other students in the classroom who also are experts that can, help us as well. So students should have the opportunity to naturally find their way around Blockly and build their stamina and perseverance while coding. With coding, it's problem solving, and they can take this problem solving attitude and this skill set to other parts of the curriculum. But working with coding and problem solving is really great. And really, we ultimately want them to figure it out on their own, because we're not always going to be there to give them all the answers. So why not help them find ways to solve the problem either amongst themselves or on their own? Some additional tips that I would, suggest while working with Dash is, again, while they're working on puzzles or projects, revisit your basic coding concepts such as sequences and debugging. Sometimes students would forget to reread the directions and they wouldn't notice that maybe one block was out of order for that sequence, and therefore the program was not allowing them to move forward with the task. So revisiting, well, what is a sequence, and redefining that. And then, if I have a bug, how do I find and fix that bug? Students will appear sometimes to be frustrated by lack of progress when simple reminders about checking their sequence will address that problem. And that's kind of what I just mentioned. Going back to those basic concepts and not letting those go by just because we're working on more complex tasks. And then providing opportunities for students to reflect on their progress and learning so far. What this could be simple turn and talk, periodic simple turn and talks throughout your time frame, or even posting comments on a Padlet or any other platform that you like, even Google Classroom, maybe giving them an opportunity to share there. But it'd be a great way to not only reflect on their own individual learning, but share tips and tricks for each other. And students, when they're asked to reflect on their coding progress, they are challenged to use some of the same vocabulary and to really put into words how they're feeling. And my students really shared some amazing things when I did this. And I didn't always ask them to necessarily share just their progress, but also what was it that they were stuck on? What did they have the most challenge with, and what was, really tough for that day? And then we talked about some of the similarities and differences amongst all of our class when it comes to those, maybe those challenges and those successes. And if you'd like some more information on Dash, the Lowell Public Schools Instructional Technology Corner has a whole selection of Dash videos. And the Wonder Workshop website also provides further resources that are worthwhile to explore. I'd like to thank you for your time listening to my video, and I hope it is helpful, and have fun with Dash. Thanks so much.